Cool. We are live. Hey guys, welcome back to yet another LinkedIn Live. After many days, I'm doing this LinkedIn Live. I'm your host Pawan, and today we have our guest Chris, who is going to talk about RAG, AI agents, and MCP, all very trendy topics in AI. So let me introduce Chris. He was there in one of our previous sessions also. You might know Chris. Chris is the founder of Vectorize.io, where he helps companies connect their unstructured data to their LLMs. Before that, Chris led product management for API Gateway at Google and was the general manager of the vector database business at DataStax. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live, Chris, again.
Hey, Pavan. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. Really excited to have this conversation. I've been looking forward to this talk for quite a while.
We are all in an era where every company and even individuals are eager to engage with AI with all the chat GPT hype that started like 2, 3 years back. So whether it's learning, adopting, or building AI powered solutions, the momentum is unmistakable. So, and it's also clear that AI isn't just another trend, it's actually reshaping how businesses innovate, operate, and deliver value. Compared to all the past tech waves, this AI trend, this one feels more foundational. So my first question to Chris is, AI has obviously dominated the conversation recently. So what's your take on all the hype? Is AI really changing the game, or is some of this excitement is like overblown? What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's overblown, but I think I think it's manufactured. So, like the first thing that I've noticed, kind of as I've gone through this journey, is how bad of a job a lot of people do at recognizing like what is hype. When we say hype, right? It's like, yeah, there's hype and there's sort of like things that are going on. Now, what people don't realize to the full extent is just how much of that is manufactured. So when you go out to like X and you're looking through posts of people who say, wow, this new model just dropped and look at these 10 amazing things that it's doing. People are getting paid to say that. Like the vast majority of time, what you're looking at is paid content out there that people got paid to get excited about. So that's kind of number one. So a lot of that hype is manufactured hype, and sorting out the folks that are kind of promoting the manufactured hype and sort of the paid hype from the actual, like, what are people really doing, and like what are people really getting excited about over here. I think, to me, that's the biggest distinction between trying to, like, that's the biggest tool we have in our toolbox for sorting through those two worlds to say what's the actual sort of impact. Because when you really dig under the covers of it, what you find is like 80% of the stuff is manufactured. It's not, it doesn't just so happen that on the day something new comes out, you have all these people with all these examples of the tools and what's been built with them. So just being aware of that, I think, is a good sort of mental filter to help separate that out. And then obviously, I think there's something there, which, like, to me, this manufactured hype takes away from the fact that there's actually something meaningfully different that we now have in the world of technology that is changing a lot. And I do think that LLMs are an amazing technology that we're going to be using for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, so along with LLMs, I also see a term, trending very much. That is AI agent, or you call it agentic AI. I think you have already written an article on agentic AI already. So, what makes these different from the AI applications that we have already seen before?
Yeah, well, my background is in came up from like a software engineer through like an enterprise architect type role, and I still tend to think of things in architecture quite a bit, and just like how, like, system design and system architecture. So I'll share one thing here real quick, which is, so when I think about like an agentic architecture, we talk about agents, and we could talk about what do we really mean by agents here as well. And so when I think about agents, I think about agency. I think about something that has some ability to interact with the outside world and some ability to control the steps that it takes to accomplish some task. I don't think of them as much, and I don't think and if you do, that's perfectly okay. But I don't think of them as much in terms of workflows, right? If you're building a flow in N8N to automate a workflow, and one of those steps in the workflow is to call an LLM, that's great. It's a really useful pattern, but I don't really think of that as the type of, like, when we talk about AI agents becoming a transformational technology that's going to like take all of our jobs. I don't think it's because I don't think N8N is going to take our jobs. I think this architecture is sort of the architecture of an agentic system. And to me, it's got these three layers to it. It's got the sort of like base layer, which is the reasoning layer. That's where our language models live. These could be large language models. They could be small language models. And then we have this sort of top layer of like the tool layer, the retrieval layer. And in Vectorize, we think about this mostly in terms of data retrieval. How do we get those agents the context and the data that they need to be able to successfully complete a task without hallucinating? And then our job as agent developers really sits here in the middle. It's how do we connect the tools to the LLM, orchestrate those steps as dictated by the language model so that we can ultimately get the net result out the door and accomplish the task that the agent has been tasked with. So when I think about sort of this world of agents and kind of how it ties into some of these other things like LLMs and RAG and retrieval and vector data, to me, it's different parts of the same picture, which is how we kind of build out these agentic system architectures.
Yeah. So one question that usually pops up when we talk about agentic systems is like, in the agentic architecture or systems, there can be one agent or there can be multiple agents also, right?
Yeah,
Working together.
yeah, for sure. And
Okay.
and I think when we think about that, I'll maybe just share again. I see a lot of similarities here, and if you kind of dig into a lot of these frameworks that are out there as well, I start to see some similarities between the things we've been talking about for like 50 years now from the Unix philosophy. The same way that we said, hey, let's make, well, I didn't, I wasn't around then, but, we'll make one tool. It's going to do that one thing well. And we're going to build everything where the output of one, in the Linux world, the Unix world, one command is going to be the input to the next command. And I see a lot of these same patterns in these multi-agent systems, following these same, like taking advantage of these same things that we've known for years. I also see a lot of parallels here in the multi-agent systems between microservices, not so much in the deployment side and the, being independently scalable and so forth, but in the idea of having this like bounded context and saying, I'm going to build an agent, and that agent's going to work with other agents. Each one needs to have its own set of responsibilities. And if I get outside of that bounded context, then I don't just want to cram more and more in that agent. That agent's going to get more complex. It's going to get less, good at its job. And so I want to really think about those boundaries across these agents, and then how am I going to orchestrate these things together? And this is where things like Crew AI are out there, and they've kind of applied some of these things. If you want a really simple example that came out probably a year ago or so now, OpenAI released a reference library, a reference implementation called OpenAI Swarm, which I thought did a nice job of just illustrating some of these core concepts. It's not meant to be a full production system that you go implement agents on top of, but it's a pretty handy little guide for the mechanisms, illustrating the mechanisms at building a multi-agent system, which I learned a lot by kind of playing around with that framework when it first came out.
Yeah. And also people say that, if you use a lot of AI agents in an agentic system, it'll cost you more. Is that true?
Well, I mean, so what are the costs in an agentic system? Your costs are going to come from almost all token use, right? So, I mean, there's some cost to the actual like compute and storage, but compared to the token use, It also depends on the model, right? So what trade-offs do you tend to have with these things? So you tend to have some trade-offs in terms of the bigger models. So like take Claude 4 Opus, for example, like that great model, like absolutely like amazing model. Um, Extremely high price point. You know, I mean, it's a very high price
Yeah.
point. And so if you're using like a lot of agents that are inferring a lot of things, you're getting a lot of output tokens, especially your costs are going to skyrocket. And so part of the name of the game here is also like model optimization. So if you look at like okay, so you have model optimization, you also have like inference speed. So if you have things that are simple, like simple tasks that you want to offload to an LLM, like to me, my mind starts going to Grok with a Q, where I can run like, Llama 4 Scout. I can run Llama 4 Scout really fast on their LPU infrastructure. It's really, really fast. It's affordable, especially compared to the large language models. But then I may have tasks that are much more complex, right? So in this agentic system, I may have like a lot of smaller steps that are pretty easy, but I need to now pull and aggregate all those together, and I need a bigger model. You can use some things like, DeepSeek will do an okay job. It's still a smallish model on Grok. You can use like Quinn, smallish model on Grok will do a good job. You'll hit limits there, and eventually you'll need to go up to like a Gemini or a GPT, 4.0 or 4.1 or an Anthropic, and I think sort of in all of those, it becomes a cost optimization problem to figure out like how do I use the cheapest, the cheapest tool for the job at each one of those things without sacrificing the overall quality of the system. And that's an art, right? That's not a, it's like, putting together the hello world agent is not a hard task, but like building out these things that are actually like that actually work well, like that's a big accomplishment. If you've done that, like congrats, because like you're already ahead of a lot of people. And if you actually have productionalized that, taken it into account the actual like building it in a cost effective way, then you're even farther along. So those are when you talk to people who've done a lot of agent development, those are some of the common themes that I hear talking to people, and that I've seen in my own experience as well.
Got it. Thanks for that, Chris. So my next question to you is like we have heard a lot about RAG
Yeah.
in the past year. So given how fast AI is evolving, is RAG still as relevant as it was? Why or why not? Because some people are writing that RAG is dead. But I don't believe, because
No,
I'm
no, no,
a
no, no. Great
my
question.
usually talks are more on RAG. So
Great
if you
question.
can throw
Absolutely
some
great
light.
question. Well, and this goes back to the hype. Okay, so let's take this back to the question one that we had on hype. So when we look at sort of the hype of AI, everything is moving so fast. I can't keep up with this. There's something new coming out every week. That's all the hype. That's all the hype. Now, look, the most boring thing in the world at this point is chatbots. Is like I'm building a conversational AI. It is the most boring thing in the world. It's also the most common thing that people are doing still with AI. And when you get into these sort of like conversational interactions that you're building out, it's like what are your choices, right? So choice A, and you see people advocating for this, which to me is just like I want to advertise to the world that I'm failing an IQ test. I want to push all my context into the context window every time. Why? Like, in what possible universe is this a good idea that you are going to say, take anything else that we've learned, any applications we've built for the last 50 years? Like, we've never, like, we got more memory on our machines. Do we want to take the entire database and cram it like into our machine,
Yeah.
like return all the data and just wait for it there? Like, no, that's a terrible idea. It's
Yeah.
just as terrible of an idea now to take all of your documents and data and try to hand it to the LLM every time. So you need some way. And by the way, even if you do, that's still RAG. You're still retrieving the data. You're
Yeah.
still augmenting the generation. So to me, it becomes just a pragmatic matter of like, I want the LLM to have the context that it wants. I'm paying for all these input tokens. I'm paying for all these output tokens. The more context I cram into that window, the worse the output's going to be. So given the fact that chatbots, again, are the most boring thing in the world, but people are still building a lot of them, and you want them to be accurate, then you're still going to need some degree of RAG. Now, I will say for sure that like as you go through that journey of building things with RAG, you kind of have a honeymoon period at first. And it's like, wow, this is great. Like it's using my context and it's giving me good answers. And then you start to see there are limitations of semantic search. There are just things that semantic search, and this is also like vector search, though just maybe for folks who are a little bit newer to this space, I'll take a second and kind of talk about these things. So you have different ways that you can search for context. So you have things like keyword search, which has been around a long time. Sometimes you'll hear this called sparse vector search or algorithms like BM25. And those are good at things where like synonyms sort of matching, keyword matching. So if I say something to a traditional keyword system and I say these two sentences and you tell me how similar these are. If I say, I love being near you and I hate being apart from you. Like, well, we know those are basically identical. But from a keyword search perspective, right, they're very different. It's like, oh, you're saying like you love and hate. Those are opposites. Like near and apart, those are opposites. So semantic search fills in the gaps between those two worlds. So semantic search says, oh, I'm going to encode the meaning of these sentences. And when I do that, those meanings are really, really close to each other. And so if somebody said, give me the most similar thing to sentence one, you would be very likely to get sentence two. And so that's the idea behind semantic search. But what will invariably happen as you try to build agents or conversational AIs on top of just pure basic RAG is you'll start to run into issues where even semantic search breaks down. So if I want to know things like, hey, which of my contracts is going to expire in the next 6 months? That's not like semantic search is not going to give you sort of that ability. So I view this as like an agentic RAG. And so that's how we talk about it at Vectorize. And the way that we support this is by saying, let's take the metadata out of a document. Let's do an extraction of the metadata out of these documents. So that when you go to query, your agent goes to query, the agent can say, I want you to search for contract expiration, but I want you only to look for contracts where the expiration date that we've extracted out of the content is within this date range. And now what we can do is we can get sort of the best of both worlds, where we can say, let's narrow down based on the user's request, the right set of documents we need to look at. Then within those docs, let's find the pieces that are most relevant. Let's hand that to the LLM. Now the LLM can answer like much broader sets of questions much more accurately. And it really closes the gap. So to me, when people say RAG is dead, I think there's a bunch of sort of mixed factors that are in play. Part of it is like, I'm just trying to get hype and attention, and it's sort of the rage baity stuff on social media. I hope you get a lot of likes if you say that kind of stuff. Go say that. You'll probably get a bunch of likes if you want some. But I do think that it kind of reveals two things. One, I think it reveals sort of a flawed view of like how data retrieval works in general, and I also think it mixes up this world of like semantic search and vector search, like pure vector search, versus like more generally, I need to retrieve the right data. I think we're always going to need to retrieve the right data. We'll always use that to augment the generation. That's my take.
Got it. Because even my take is that whatever we do in AI applications, whenever for any user query, end of the day, what we are doing is exactly what RAG does, like retrieving the proper data, the contextually relevant data. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like my next question to you is like you mentioned how critical retrieval is for making AI agents more accurate, right? Like why is retrieval such a key piece of the puzzle? Why do you think so?
Well, I think it becomes more important as you have more data. So it's just a problem whose difficulty scales with volume. So if you have one document, right, and I'll kind of go back on what I just said on RAG for a second. If what you're dealing with is like one or two documents, and you want to be able to chat with those documents, there's no reason whatsoever that you need to like load all of that into a vector database and query your, like, just drop that into, like, go to your favorite Claude desktop or Chat GPT, click on the little attach button, drop your files in there, and off you go. Like, that's going to be just fine. So for simple cases, it's less of an issue. But when you start to get large sets of data, and you think about this at, like, even companies like Google have a hard time with this, because it's fundamentally a search problem. And most people, for folks who are old enough to kind of remember when Google, like, first came out, and when Google first came out, the internet was like their search was magical. It sort of pulled back exactly what you needed. And over time, it became sort of worse and worse and worse. And the reason why it became worse and worse and worse is, two reasons. One is that people got better at gaming the algorithm. And two, there's just a lot more data that's out there, a lot more web pages that are out there. And so, you fundamentally, when you're doing, RAG and retrieval, you're dealing with a search problem. And so if you're searching across 10 documents, you'll find the right piece of information most of the time, especially if you have, you chunk up your documents and you're looking for, like, the 10 most relevant things in there. Like, the chances that you get the 2 or 3 that you really need to answer the question is pretty good. It's pretty good odds that you're going to get that. As you get to, like, huge corpuses of data, if you start to ingest, millions or tens of millions of documents, and you need to be able to pinpoint exactly what in this corpus is relevant and germane to answering the question or solving the task that the agent has, it just becomes a much more critical part of the problem, because without that right piece of information, like, the agent can't give you an accurate answer. It can't give you the right piece of information to complete the task. And so it is a critical part, because it's I mean, you think about it, it's like if you were if you were looking up in like the old days of, like, phone books, right? It's like, I want to look up a phone number, and the page that has the phone number you want is ripped on it. Doesn't matter that you have everything else, right? So it's same analogy applies here. You got to give the agent the right data. So retrieval is the way we do it.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any tactics, like techniques, you use for retrieval? Are there any?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things. Maybe I'll just do, like, a quick sort of, like, partial demo here to give a sense of how we think about it. But we've thought about this problem a lot, right? So we thought about this problem from the standpoint of, starting off, we said we need to be able to get people the data that they need into their database. And so we kind of started off with this idea of connecting different source connectors and pushing that data into vector databases. And that works great up to a certain point. And then what we said is, well, it'd be really nice if we could give you a way to extract the data that you want. And so, like, here in the US, we have what's called the Security and Exchange Commission. This is where, like, all of the big public companies have to put out their quarterly reports saying what were their earnings and what are management's discussion and analysis of the results and what were the risks and all these type of things. And these documents, for example, are a huge challenge for traditional RAG systems, because in vector search, all the content is pretty similar. It's like the results for Q1 and Q2 and how we talk about them, really similar. The numbers may be different, but we talk about them the same way. And when you go from company A to company B and you go from their quarterly reports, very similar content. And so one of the things we needed to be able to do is to allow the retrieval layer here to say, well, look, if somebody's asking a question, let's narrow our search down just to the things that they care about. And so this is a schema-based extraction that's built into Vectorize. And what this does is it says, we can take the structure of your data, and as part of our processing, we're going to extract the pieces that you want, and we're going to let you filter your search by that. So for example, here we've got ticker symbol. If somebody says, tell me how Adobe's performance was in Q2 2024, then what the agent can do is it can say, oh, I know Adobe, that's ADBE, that's the ticker symbol. I know that you want 2024, so that's my fiscal year. I know that the fiscal quarter that you wanted was Q2. And so now I can narrow my search down just to the document that is
Okay.
relevant to answering the question. And I could do multiple searches. If I say year over year growth, then I know, oh, maybe I need to look at Q2 2023 as well. And I can have the agent pull back just that data that it needs. And then what we've done to make this even easier to plug into the agent world, as we've said, let's actually let people expose all of this via a MCP based agent. And so here what we can do is we can have, financial agent, and I can now point this to my pipeline, my SEC filing pipeline. And instead of doing just a generic search, a generic search across all of the content in there, I can actually create a function here that says, search, quarterly reports. And over here, I can now say, I've got a ticker symbol, and we can map this to the field in our metadata. I can add hard-coded values here. So I could say document metadata dot filing type, and I can say I only want to get 10Q reports over here. And so what this does effectively is it says, instead of just having sort of this generic vector search, semantic search capability in RAG, I can now create this really curated layer for my agent, and I can expose that as an MCP server. So I can plug it in anywhere. Suddenly, like now Claude Desktop is like an agent powered by my unstructured data layer. Now, like if I want to plug this into LangChain or another framework, I can plug that in. Now I've got all the context. The agent can use that and make much better retrieval or get much better retrieval results than it would otherwise.
Amazing. So I saw, I mean, like I heard that you just used the word MCP.
Yeah,
So now that everybody is talking about MCP
yeah,
right now, since it is trending, just like how AI agents were trending some days back, some months back.
yeah.
So can you tell us like why is everyone talking about MCP?
Yeah, so and I'll give you sort of like my sort of good and bad take on MCP. So like MCP is like the USB of LLMs, right? It's essentially like our universal adapter now to say we're going to plug in, uh, as a SaaS provider, I can now give you an MCP server. You can plug it in, and now you can take all your data, and that can be available to you. You can also use it to now connect the things that you care about from a developer perspective is a common one we see. So like if I'm building out something that needs the single store. Do you guys have a MCP server for your
Yeah.
yeah, so like I thought you did. So I'm using single store, and I want to be able to create my tables and things on single store. I can now take that MCP server, plug it into like Cursor, and it's like I don't have to remember like what how to create a table over here. If I want to query a table, I don't necessarily need to like go to the UI, look at the tables. I can plug that in. It's going to have access to it, and so it can like really empower my development flow. Now, the problem we have with MCP is that we end up getting into the state where the more tools we have, the harder we make it for the large language models to be able to. And I'll present this. I've got a little diagram here, Pavan. The harder it is for the agent to necessarily figure out the right tool, right? So like the more things we give it, the more likely the agent's going to make make mistakes and make errors in terms of this isn't just retrieval. This is kind of the combination of operational data and knowledge here. So they either make mistakes in terms of the operational data or the operational actions that need to be taken, or the data that it needs to retrieve. And this has been a problem that's been, anybody who's gone through the process of building, agents from scratch has almost certainly run into this problem where you've given the agent, a bunch of functions to work with, and all of a sudden you kind of give it a complex task and it doesn't necessarily do the best job. I think I've got another image that kind of illustrates this. Like MCP does not really solve this problem of it doesn't take the burden off of us of saying, hey, I've got a really complex task. Let's give the LLM access to everything and it'll figure it out. Right. So we still have to deal with sort of the reality that we're going to get from giving the agent too many tools to work with. So,
Yeah.
but the valuable part here is the fact that you do have now this USB like interface for data, for tools, which I think is extremely powerful. In our job as developers and as agent builders is to figure out how do you get the right set of tools to the agent so that you don't get overwhelmed and you don't get worse results than you intended.
Right. And some people talk about MCP with the security issues also,
Oh yeah.
like giving away, plugging a lot of tools and direct
Yeah.
access to a lot of tools, data.
Well, and I think this is where this is an area where MCP does have some limits currently, and so like where does MCP work best? MCP works best where a lot of other things in LLMs are working best, which is I am in the developer space. Like I think of all the things that we're doing with LLMs right now. I don't think anybody is anywhere near as like impacted in a good way than developers. I mean, maybe someday that'll change and it'll like turn around and like eat us. But being able to go to single store, plug in the MCP server, using my own like credentials that I have, and being able to sort of have that limited to like just me, right? Just like I'm the only one using it. I set this up, and so like I'm not sharing this with anybody. It's for my own personal work. The security concerns aren't quite as dramatic. Now, as you start to get into like the operational data, right? In a way, these servers become a bypass. Like they become a bypass for the security models that are in the system. Like, we're going to connect Salesforce, and Salesforce has like all these opportunities. Well, if I go to the Salesforce UI, I can't see everything in the company. I can see maybe the companies that I work with and the deals that I've been working on, but I can't see like, the entire company's, financial, like things that impact our financial results for the quarter. And so there's a real concern. There's a very valid concern, not just with MCP. I think MCP has some unique aspects to it, but I think in general, this idea of like, how do I take data out of a system that has its own authorization model and preserve that authorization model in the LLM interface is not cracked. Like that is not a solved problem at this point that I've seen. I've seen some people claim that they do, but I don't think it's a solved problem.
Got it. So yeah, coming back to the AI retrieval part, could you share a practical example of a situation where AI retrieval goes wrong, like maybe something businesses might encounter,
Yeah, which part goes wrong?
like the AI retrieval going wrong?
AI
Could you
retrieval
share
going
a
wrong?
practical example of
Yeah,
a situation?
yeah. Well, I mean, there have been some like well publicized examples out there that are kind of humorous, at least to us on the outside looking in. Like Air Canada, right? It's like there was a big highly publicized case there that Air Canada's AI told somebody that like, yeah, we'll give you a refund on your ticket, and then all of a sudden it was like, wait, that was the wrong data. And these are very real concerns for people that are, before you open up your AI to make decisions, right? To sort of even to give advice, um,
Yeah.
putting in place some form of like LLM evaluation, RAG evaluation is going to be useful because and I say both those things kind of independently because on the one hand, there's there's been a lot of work done around bias, right? So like if you go to like there was another funny example from an auto dealership that had an AI chatbot, and somebody was there like basically using it as their own unlimited chat GPT, right? It was like, write me Python scripts and things like this on the dealer's website, which was also funny. You don't see that as much anymore. Like I haven't seen a case like that. And most of that's just simply like prompting, just sort of like a prompting layer that's sitting there. I do think that like the bigger place where there's opportunity, where we see a lot of opportunity, and we've got some interesting things around here, is like blind spot detection of the data, right? Because when does the LLM hallucinate? The LLM is going to naturally hallucinate when it has gaps in its knowledge. So it doesn't think it does. That's the problem, right? So if I say, hey, what's Vectorize's refund policy? And it doesn't know my refund policy, but it knows refund policies are a thing. It's got enough information about refund policies, and it will still happily to this day just make up something that sounds believable. Oh yeah, Vectorize, yeah, they'll give a refund for the first 30 days after you make a purchase, whatever. And so part of the challenge in productionalizing these systems, especially like these sort of like customer facing chat support, chat customer service, chat sales systems, is detecting when you have blind spots so that you can fill in the knowledge gap. And so there's sort of one layer, which is, you do want the agent to say like, I don't know if I don't know. Like if you don't know, if you don't have the answer in this text, say that you don't know. And then the second thing is figuring out like, okay, well, where did we keep telling people that we didn't know, and how do we fill in that knowledge? And that's how we can make the agents better and better to work with. And, people, I think we're past the point where most people hate interacting with AI. Like I think there was a time when people really, if it's a parent, so I'll put it this way, actually, maybe it's a little different, a little nuanced. If I see on your website, like this is a chatbot, it's powered by Vectorize, it's AI. Like I have no problem interacting with that AI. The ones that I think people don't like are the ones where you're not sure. They kind of are trying to come across as human. And I also think if you put some disclaimers on there saying our AI is generally meant to be accurate, but may make mistakes, and I acknowledge that up front, then you kind of got your bases covered.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so walk us through how structured metadata and semantic search help overcome these retrieval problems. And I think you have done some work around this recently using legal documents or contracts. Can you give us some examples of from that work, if possible?
Yeah, there's just a lot of the way I think about this, and I kind of talk to people about this, is you'll start to identify the shortcomings in your retrieval systems, like places where semantic search just doesn't work particularly well on its own. And then the question is, okay, well, what if I could query this data any way? How would I query the data? And so, like, going back to that example we looked at before with the SEC documents. Well, I know the problems that I'm going to run into are a semantic search for like what are the quarter-over-quarter results are not going to be particularly well. But if I could query it specifically by, the type of report that I want, and I could query it by the filing period and the company name, then I've narrowed down the thing to exactly what I want to be able to get. And the same thing kind of comes true for any place where you have documents that are similar. Like legal docs are a big one. You mentioned that, because when you go to a legal document, you take like your company's NDAs. You probably have NDAs with hundreds of different companies out there, and for the most part, they're 90% the same. So if you just go and you search, right, like what jurisdiction is my NDA in between Vectorize and Single Store, it's going to find hundreds of examples of NDAs that have jurisdiction. And so being able to say, well, to answer this question correctly, first off, we need to know parties. All contracts have parties in them. The documents also have standard structure. So I know that they're always going to have jurisdiction. They're going to have warranty, liability. They're going to have expiration. They're going to have signature blocks. They're going to have all these things. So being able to create that structured representation of the data is sort of step one, figuring out how do I want to be able to query this data. And then step two is, now, how do I take that and turn that into a retrieval function? And that could be as simple as you interacting directly with the Grok API, the Chat GPT API, and saying, here's a function, you can pass these parameters in, and then you can make that implement that function in your code. Or what we've done is we've said, well, let's actually just take that as a endpoint, as an MCP endpoint, and then you can just define those, and then you can push those out. Right now it's on the UI, but we're looking at API support for that too, and so we should be able to handle those pretty well. And it's going to make a huge difference in terms of the questions. There's a very narrow set of things you could do with keyword. There's a little bit broader set of things you can do with semantic search. Once you start searching your knowledge and you have this ability to do schema-based structured queries on top of unstructured data, it makes a huge difference in terms of the number and type and richness of questions that you're going to be able to answer reliably. And it really is a game changer.
Nice. So, how does Vectorize specifically help with these retrieval challenges? Like, what's so unique about the way Vectorize approaches this problem?
Yeah, I mean, the way Vectorize helps with this is that we build an out of the box solution for this, So we have inside inside of our platform. So we start off with what we call RAG pipelines, and so here, let me maybe just do a quick. I'll just pull it up really quick here. So we start off with RAG pipelines, and so this is kind of the fundamental thing that you'll be working with to say, I've got data in some source system, and this data is changing, by the way. So like one of the other things you run into is like new data is coming in, my data is changing. I always need this to be up to date. And so being able to pull that data in and keep it up to date is a big first step. And then the second thing is being able to use our Iris extractor to get the information that you need out of your document. So Iris is a vision model. It's going to be able to pull data from tables, from charts, from complex formatting. And then that's going to feed here into this metadata extraction. So we can then now wire up and say, oh, I've got a lot of 10Q quarterly reports, and I've got a lot of other analyst reports that I've pulled in about these companies. I can now pull that in. And then over here, I can now point this to, my favorite vector database. So let's use single store, and we're going to connect into single store, and it's just a simple integration here. And so now, instead of just having my sort of generic vector search index that's populated in here, now what I'll get, kind of at the end of everything, just in the interest of time, I'll show you one that's already been set up here. Oops, not what I wanted to do. Oops, not what I wanted to do. Give this a second.
Yep.
Well,
so you are building a RAG pipeline from Vectorize?
Yeah. So what will happen is once we have one that's been populated, like this one has already been populated behind the scenes. And what you'll see is once you've used that schema-based extractor on your documents, you'll be able to come in and see how they all get chunked up. And then we'll be able to see here that I've got that document metadata that's here. Now this is available for querying. So I can say, I just want to get Citigroup. I just want to get the fiscal year and fiscal quarter for their 10Q reports, for example. And then now I can have the LLM pull, or not the LLM, but my application can retrieve exactly what the LLM wants to be able to answer the key question that it needs. And so you have the ingestion part, but then in that processing in the pipeline, what we can do is we can enrich the data. So we can enrich all the chunks that you have in your data to say, we also want this metadata. Now I can query by that. Now I can do, now I get around all those limitations that you have with kind of traditional naive RAG, because I can pinpoint exactly what it is that I want to retrieve.
Got it. So, can you show how Vectorize supports building these AI agents and retrieval systems?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of the one that we just saw there, was like how we would build that out on there. We use the RAG pipeline. Yeah.
Got it. So yeah, I think we already saw the demo. You showed that thing. So I think people can go to vectorize.io, sign up, and they'll get first time they can use it for free. Is it?
Yeah. There's a free tier. It's
Okay.
so The free tier is great if you have a like a little side project that you're working on, or if you have a POC for work that you're working on, and you just kind of want to kick the tires. It's forever free, so you can use it for as long as you'd like. I think we give you like 1,500 pages that you can process on a monthly basis. I think I want to say 500 of those can use the metadata extraction and our Iris Vision model. So for any sort of small
Wow.
project that you have like that, it's going to be really useful. And then if you want to use our MCP functions, you want to use some of the more advanced features, then we've got, then we kind of grow from there. So we start small, roughly $99 a month, and then enterprise kind of get to more of an enterprise price point. But yeah, any developers out there, you want to play with a kind of fun tool to
Yeah.
get data working for your agents,
Yeah.
give it a try.
Yeah, even I tried. I mean, Vectorize along with Single Store. Single Store also has a free share tier,
Yeah.
and the combination is kind of a killer combination when we use Single Store plus Vectorize. I think I have also made a video on my YouTube channel. So,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And I'm pretty sure we've got like in our documentation, I'm pretty sure we have a quick start too for getting
yeah,
started with single store. So check that out.
Single Store.
And yeah, we got a lot of people who love using those two products together, and give it a shot.
Yeah. So yeah, the last question to you, like from your perspective, what's next in AI and retrieval? What trends or advancements should we be paying attention to in the next maybe 6 months to 1 year, like 12 months? What do you think?
Well, to me, the big insight that we've had working with a lot of companies on these cases is we kind of start off thinking about AI agents and thinking about conversational AIs. How do we solve this one particular problem? And more, what we are recognizing is like, wow, the value that's in this unstructured data is so much bigger than these use cases that we're focused on. And in fact,
Mhm.
thinking about like, how do I take this unstructured data now and leverage it in ways to extract insights out of it for my business users, for example. So like we deal with a lot of support data, and we use that to power some like support automation and things like that, and that's great and that's useful. And then along the way, we've realized like, wow, like support is using this, it's helping support, but in all these conversations, there's a gold mine of information for product management. Like there's
Mm,
all the feature requests that are coming in that people are asking about. There's all of the places where people are saying, I really wish your product did this. If it did this, it'd work for my project better. Right. And
got
leveraging that data in sort of these ways that are, just getting the value across the organization, the visibility across the organization. To me, that's where that's where there's a lot of opportunity, for companies to, really just change the way that they work and to be much more effective. So that's the part that has me the most excited right now.
Got it. So yeah, I think we're at the end of this session. Thanks for joining, Chris. It was really amazing talking to you on this
Yeah. Thanks,
LinkedIn.
Pavan. Yeah, it's great talking to you too as well. And thanks everybody out there for
Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining.
spending your day with us. Yeah.
Bye bye. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Pavan. See
Thanks.
ya.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.